We're now privileged to hear from Cathal Mahon. He's the Chief Business Officer at Deep Tech Lab Quantum, where he's responsible for leading the business development team. He's a technology expert with extensive experience as an investment manager for venture capital funds specializing in high-tech startups, including quantum. And prior to this, from a variety of managerial and R&D positions in the telecommunications industry. Since 2016, he has been exclusively focused on developing the commercial potential of quantum technologies. Please join me in welcoming Cathal.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me, yes. So first of all, thank you for the introduction, and thank you to Quantum World Congress for the opportunity to speak here about Deep Tech Lab. And if I just move to the first slide. So the title of the talk, as you can see, is Deep Tech Lab Quantum, and in particular, its role as a DIANA Accelerator under the auspices of NATO. And what I'm going to start on first actually is talk more about NATO. Maybe a lot of people are aware of the DIANA program that NATO has initiated, but I think it makes most sense to go through that, talk about how Deep Tech Lab works within that, and then finally tell you a little bit more about Deep Tech Lab. So first of all, DIANA, the acronym, there are loads and loads of acronyms, but it stands for Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic. And perhaps the most important thing about DIANA is the fact that the objective of DIANA is basically to sharpen the alliance's technological edge and thereby ensure transatlantic security. As part of NATO's 2030 strategy, it has been identified that edge, that technological edge, is not as sharp as it was, say, before a certain date in November 1989. Things since then have basically degraded, and now the NATO alliance has decided that they need to do something about that. And basically it is through focus on 9 emerging and disruptive technologies, or EDTs, one of which is quantum technology. And before I go into the means, I just want to emphasize that the whole idea behind DIANA was basically to tap into all the innovation and the potential economies of scale that companies that are working, in the civilian sector basically have, and that are not necessarily those that think of defense and security as a potential market. Basically, these are companies that are working away, are being incredibly innovative, and are developing solutions and technologies primarily or basically exclusively in many cases for civilian applications, but don't really think about defense and security as an option. And this is a way kind of to flip things a little bit. I know in the US, DARPA thinks in terms of defense first and then business second. DIANA actually has flipped that a little bit, where the narrative is basically saying, okay, we do business first and then defense second. And then that way you are accessing a whole load of companies that are not being accessed today. So that's the whole idea with these accelerators and test centers. So basically leveraging the civilian sector innovation within these dual-use technologies. But it's not enough in itself. The second means is this NATO Innovation Fund. But these companies, they also need investors in to help them grow and develop. So a $1 billion sovereign, multi-sovereign NATO Innovation Fund has been established. I think 22 of the 31 members of the alliance have already contributed to that. And the whole idea is that this fund will invest pretty much the same way as InQtel does in the US, where they go into companies together with other VCs for profits, corporate, strategic, whatever. The whole idea is that it's dual-use technologies that have commercial potential as well, and that is the reason why all these other syndication partners are going in. There's also a third means that is not listed here, which in my opinion is mandatory, and if it is not part of this means, then these two are basically meaningless, and that is rapid procurement. As it is now, it just takes way, way, way too long for startups, particularly those that already have a fine market within the civilian sector. They are not prepared to go through the hoops, the many, many years required before you can finally get that order. So if this rapid procurement process, that is the plans to have this in place, if that does not materialize, then all these two things basically are for naught. So that's also a very important component to think about in this context as well. So this is a bit of an eye chart. It's just to kind of give you a quick update on what the status is. So right now, 11 accelerators have been approved by DIANA to be part of the program. The ones that are highlighted in green are those that are part of the pilot program, which is actually going to start here in December 2023. You can see that the Niels Bohr Institute / Bio-Innovation Institute is one of those. That actually was the name of on the bid that was sent in by Denmark back in the day, at the beginning of 2022. The organization that will now be representing, that will be the accelerator, is actually Deep Tech Lab Quantum. You can see there's also a whole load of other test sites listed there as well, but I just wanted to highlight that of those 5 initial accelerator sites, Deep Tech Lab Quantum is the only one that addresses companies that have an EDT within quantum technologies. Again, another eye chart, you can see there's like 91, I think, is the count on this particular chart. In this case, there are a number of locations within the alliance that have quantum as part of their test and measurement facilities, and that's actually quite important, because although there are 4 test sites in Denmark, not all those test sites cannot do everything necessarily. There will be other test sites that can do other things, maybe in a more efficient manner, or maybe in some way that is more conducive for what these startups are interested in testing. So we will draw upon the full capabilities of the alliance for these companies when they go through the program. So basically, how does it work? So it is basically, access to the program is through these challenge-based calls, pretty much the way that it is here in the US with DARPA. And the 3 calls that were basically announced here in June 19th and closed here at the end of August are within these 3 areas. You can see you have sensing and surveillance, energy resilience, and secure information sharing. And again, there's an overall scenario, and then within each of those scenarios, there are a number of facets that these startups can address. Precisely because it's startups, they cannot address the full problem, the full scenario, but they can address certain aspects of it. And that's the whole idea with DIANA, is to basically reach out to those early stage companies and then draw upon their innovation and expertise. So what does DIANA actually offer these companies? Now I'm focusing pretty much on what DIANA offers. I'll get back to what Deep Tech Lab offers a little bit later. So basically there are grants to basically cover their costs during the program. They will also get mentoring from a broad range of people, both scientists, engineers, industry experts, end users, all the people that need to help them get a better understanding of the potential and what's required in the defense and security market. There's also a community of investors, again, as I mentioned before, anchored by the NATO Innovation Fund. And then there's also opportunities to field their technology in operational environments. So this may not be something that happens as part of the first 6-month period, but it is definitely something that will happen as they progress through the program. And I'll have a slide discussing that as well. There's also an industrial partnership network as well for learning opportunities. Again, many of these companies will never have had any kind of interaction with the defense and security sector as a potential market. So this is incredibly important that they establish these connections. And then finally, there is, of course, the goal at the end of the rainbow, access to a market which comprises of 31 members of the alliance. So where exactly are we now? So basically, this chart kind of outlines kind of the whole process. We are there where that red dot is. So basically, the call closed here at the end of August. They are now in the process of evaluating those applications. The number of applications they received, actually, this is dated. It's actually 1,300 plus applications from 1,200 plus applicants. Some applicants submitted more than one application. So this is like way more than they actually had anticipated, but it's actually fantastic to see that there is so much interest from startups. The vast majority are startups. I think 60% of the applicants are companies with less than 10 employees. So they have really hit a nerve. There is really an interest from these companies working in the civilian sector for investigating whether defense and security is a potential market for them. And as you can see, here are the numbers for phase one, 100,000 for the first 6-month period. 30 to 40 startups will be selected, so that's only a success rate of the order of, say, 2 to 3%. And in phase two, then it's kind of another 6 months, but increased funding. And there will be kind of a relatively severe down selection process here where of the order of 10 to 20 companies will actually make it through. And then again, transition adoption pathways beyond that again. So we're still early days. It's a bit of an experiment, but personally I think it's just fantastic. Looking at it from the accelerator perspective, having so many applicants means it's possible to put a good cohort together that will be able to help each other as they go through. That's also a very, very important component. So the role of Deep Tech Lab Quantum, so basically our programs, which will be tailored for quantum, will basically develop interdisciplinary teams. It'll help them identify and develop the most promising business cases, and it'll also help them determine the most suitable technology development pathways for commercial viability, company growth. Now, you can note here, I haven't said anything about whether it's civilian or non-civilian market, because it's important that all those things are addressed in all cases if you want to have these viable companies that can stand on their own 2 feet. In addition to that, of course, we will be complementing and supplementing the defense and security curriculum that DIANA will be helping with, and also we will also facilitate and support these companies in their action with the test and measurement centers, because that's also a very important component as well. So that's the role of the Deep Tech Lab. But what is Deep Tech Lab? I mean, I just said at the start it is kind of an accelerator, but it's a relatively new accelerator. And there are basically 2 reasons why Denmark basically made this proposal way back in 2022, and what the basis for that was. The first of all is basically, I think many of you can recognize the gentleman here, but this is of course Niels Bohr. And Denmark has a quantum, has a legacy within quantum that stretches back over 100 years. And it's actually quite interesting to today, when we're talking about quantum, the second quantum revolution. Some of the things such as superposition and entanglement were things that Niels Bohr and his contemporaries talked about almost 100 years ago, but are first now being implemented in practice. So that's actually quite interesting. So although Denmark has the history, it continues to this day. Denmark actually has the largest number of quantum-relevant graduate students per capita in the world. This is based on a study done by Quantum Delta in the Netherlands. In Europe, we're number 2 in terms of unique first authors publishing in leading journals, again, from the same source. And the third point is that, and this is where the Novo Nordisk Foundation, which some of you who were at the International Forum yesterday may have heard about this, but the Novo Nordisk Foundation finances basic research. It also finances translational research programs like this program here, which is a program which ultimately will be of the order of €500 million to build a fault-tolerant quantum computer that will solve a problem of relevance, commercial relevance, within the life science industry by 2034. Now that's a bit of a mouthful, and it's also a very ambitious statement, but the fantastic thing about this is that the learning that is going to come out of this, because they're basically building this up from the ground. They have their own foundry where they will fabricate the quantum materials that they will use for this. Initially, they're starting with photonics, superconducting qubits, spin qubits. They're the 3 modalities, but they're essentially technology agnostic. When they go through the first 5-year phase, if they find out that they need to go to other modalities, they will do so, and that will be part of their thinking in terms of how they set up the tools for characterization, measurement, and fabrication, etc. So that is the background. That's the quantum side. The other side is the fact here that the accelerator will be building upon the back of what this Bio-Innovation Institute, which is a life science accelerator, which is fully owned by the Novo Nordisk Foundation, just like Deep Tech Lab Quantum. Basically, this is an accelerator that was started about 5-6 years ago. They've already had almost 100 companies through at this stage. You can see here the numbers are quite impressive in terms of how these companies have been able to secure later stage financing. And this is the reason why Denmark put in the proposal, because we have a very successful life science accelerator, which is dealing with kind of complex technologies. I like to say that pharma, that's something that costs a lot of money, takes a long time, and is very risky. And you can say exactly the same thing about quantum. So basically, this is an incubator that is used to dealing with kind of interdisciplinary teams. It's used to dealing with complex hardware, technology-based startups, also used to dealing with how they develop business cases in that kind of environment and how they develop their technology. All that learning is going to be an integral part of Deep Tech Lab Quantum. And now I'm going to finish up here before I'm cut off. So basically, combination of these two things has resulted in this quantum technology and life science focus. So basically, Deep Tech Lab itself, Quantum, will be physically located with its sister organization, Bioinnovation Institute. We will leverage and build upon all their existing processes and ways of working with deep tech startups. They have a number of programs that we will replicate and adapt for quantum. And we will have a particular focus on startups addressing market opportunities at the intersection of quantum technologies and life science. And this will necessarily be a global reach, because the deal flow, as you know, within quantum is very, very small. So we will be reaching out globally to have companies come through our accelerator where we think we have this particular edge if they're quantum tech based and are addressing applications within life science. Finally, we have an opening event here on the 29th of September. So in less than an hour, I'm heading out to the airport. And the reason why it seems like very, very bad planning, right? I mean, I'm at the conference and yet I have to rush back. But the reason is that it turns out that the Secretary General for NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, is actually in town at a conference. He was invited by the Danish Prime Minister. So basically, we have exploited that opportunity and asked him to open the accelerator. And I think it's it speaks to the importance that NATO places on quantum technologies in the defense and security context, that he has actually agreed to cut the ribbon at the event here on the 29th. So with that, here's my contact info. Please reach out if you wish to learn more. Thank you.